Welcome to the Tattoo Marketing Podcast. On this week's episode, we have Ryan Roi, a wizard when it comes to finances for tattoo shops. We talk about understanding your financials as a tattoo shop and as a tattoo artist and leveraging your credit. Absolutely great episode. A lot of really good knowledge if you're an artist or if you're a shop owner. So enjoy.
In shops my whole adult life, and over the pandemic is when I had to shut down my studio, and I had a 4-month-old baby, and I was like, man, I got to figure out how am I going to work remotely. And I'd actually been thinking about financial coaching for about 2 years and just getting interested in finances. I was historically terrible with my money, as many artists in general, tattooers, artists, but let's be real, like everyone kind of doesn't know what the fuck they're doing. No one teaches us this stuff. They teach us, Columbus sailed the ocean blue in 1492 or something. I don't even know if I remember that properly, but they teach us all this stuff, and they don't teach us like how to properly file taxes, or how to, what is a retirement account? What are the options available to you? The importance of starting those things early. And so I came into that information what I felt was later in life. And I got passionate about it. I don't really know when the switch happened, but there came a point where I realized I was more passionate about financial coaching and education than I was about tattooing, which is something I never thought I would say, but here I am. And now I run a global group coaching program. We have assistant coaches. I have a whole team that I've hired to support me in bringing financial education to the masses. And that's really what we do. So we work primarily with tattooers. I'd say 99% of our clients are tattoo artists, given that that's my background. But we signed up an herbalist the other day. We have a real estate agent in the course. We have acupuncturists and all kinds of other artists. Basically, people that don't want to talk to Chad from Fidelity in a blazer. If you don't want to talk to Chad, now nothing wrong, nothing against Chad, you're cool, but he's not for everyone. And so if you don't want to talk to him, maybe I'm the person to talk to.
Definitely, man. And I think it's also really important to note, like, the fact that you are a tattoo artist, that you own a shop, that you know the industry. Because along with, any other thing like marketing, like we were talking about, or financial advice, like, you need to know the industry to really be able to appreciate it and to give out the best advice, and teach people. Because, with tattoo artists having, essentially freelancers as their artists versus having a normal W-2 employee, like, it's a different game,
Yeah. And then there's just so many nuances to everyone's situation. I've worked with people that have never had an actual bank account in their life, and they're in their 30s, and they, been living the pirate life, and they want to buy a house. They want to retire, and they're starting to realize, oh shit, I'm not prepared. I'm not set up to do that properly. So that's where we come in.
Definitely, man. And so what have you seen the biggest issues being so far with tattoo shops and the finances?
Yeah. And I know we were saying, like, let's try to talk about shops, because that's something I haven't talked a lot about. And I think to some degree, the issues that individuals deal with translates easily to either a shop owner or the individual. But in general, I find that the systems that we have in place, or the lack thereof, are perfectly designed to produce whatever results we're getting. So consider you've been tattooing for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, right? Ask yourself, and this is a good just question if you really want to, like, up your financial game in 5 minutes. Consider how much am I earning net, right? After expenses. So gross is before expenses, net is after you've paid your rent, your supplies. What am I earning? And then how much of that am I actually accumulating and saving and growing for the future? So if you earn 10K a month and you save and invest $1,000 a month, right? And I'm not talking saving, but then dipping back into the honey pot and taking it out, actually putting it away and not touching it. And if you save $1,000 a month out of a 10K month, you're saving 10% of your income. So if over a 5-year span, you're averaging 10%, that's decent. It's good, but get an idea of what your average savings percentage rate is. And that will really give you a good idea of your overall financial health. So ideally, you want to be at a 20% savings rate if you want to buy a house and retire. If you want to do both of those goals, which most of the people we speak with, those are two really big goals on their plate. You want to get to a 20% savings rate. Whatever your income is, it doesn't matter. Aiming to hit that 20% savings rate. And look, I'm not stepping over the fact that yes, there are obstacles. There's nuances to each person's situation, but look at the systems you have in place and see, well, if I improved the way money's managed, when money comes into my life, if Ryan is in charge of every dollar that comes into Ryan's life, I will fuck it up. That's just the truth. I'm busy. I'm drawing, I'm tattooing, I'm emailing, I'm marketing, I'm like doing all these things. I'm juggling all these balls, I'm wearing all these hats. I shouldn't actually be managing the money that comes into my life. I'm not going to like pay a money manager to like manage all the money for me. You can simply create a series of bank accounts, set them up so that you can automate transfers and have that manage. Even if 30% of the money in your life was managed automatically by your system and the rest of it was managed by you, that would mean that you can only fuck up 70%. And that's better than fucking up 100%. And that's basically the philosophy that I came to after years of fucking it up, of not being good at it and wondering, where the hell does all my money go?
Mhm.
So that I feel like I came to my solution because I'm a freelancer, because my income is irregular, and just acknowledging like, okay, I'm never going to do this well. I'm never going to be good at this. I shouldn't even expect myself to be good at it. So let me put systems in place that are good at it so that I don't have to be.
Definitely. And I love that system, man. I actually recently started doing something kind of like that myself because I'm the same way, man. And it's weird how, if you took home $4,000 a month or you took home $15,000 a month, it seems like no matter what, I had the same amount left over.
Yeah.
More money, you spend more, and it's a very strange thing, but being able to put it away like you're talking about without the ability to touch it, that's a great idea.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, that lifestyle creep is real. And it is interesting when you start to think like, oh, 5 years ago, I made $20,000 a year less than I do now, but I still save and have about the same amount of money that I did 5 years ago. I'll talk to people that have been tattooing for 20 years and they essentially don't have anything saved. And, the you got to just be honest and say like, okay, that means I have worked my ass off for 20 years and I basically have nothing to show for it. And I think people don't want to, it's not comfortable to have that honest look at ourselves, but I think it's so important that we be that real with ourselves, or that we at least have that space to have that kind of a conversation. And because that honesty will in itself shift your perspective on the way you're dealing with money. And so that's the other part of what we do, is not only helping people establish really efficient systems for managing money, but shifting the way you think about and talk about and your perception. You can almost look at it as like the software in your brain around money, right? There's a program called This Is Money and This Is How Money Works.
Mhm.
And that software was probably installed when you were 15 to 20, you started using money, right? And that software probably worked fine in your early 20s. Maybe you're living the pirate life and there's no consequences to making money as fast as you spend money. But that software doesn't get updated, and all of a sudden you're 30 and then you're 40, but you're still thinking about and interacting with money in the same way you did in your 20s. And it's like, how often do you update your computer or your phone, right? You're always updating your phone software, but we haven't updated our money software in 10, 20 years sometimes. And so that's another big part, is having different kinds of conversations around money, bringing our awareness to our relationship with money, and what that looks like. I'll often ask people, if you and money were dating, how would you describe your relationship? And then they'll be like, ooh,
Oh. Yeah.
I kind of avoid my partner at all costs. But I
Yeah.
want more of them. I want more of their attention, but I also like don't want to look them in the eye. I'm like, okay, interesting. How's that relationship working for you? If you were in that kind of a relationship and someone was treating you that way, would you want to stick around in that relationship? And I'm like, no. I'm like, well, money doesn't want to stick around in that relationship either.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it because it is. I mean, talking about money, and again, this is something I had to do, and why I've been excited to talk to you is I've recently gone through my own stuff with trying to get better about finances, but sitting down and actually having like an honest conversation with yourself, like where is it going? Why do I not have as much as I should essentially in a bank account in retirement? And it's one, eye opening, and two, it can kind of make you feel like shit, like you're a very irresponsible adult. So it's definitely a really hard conversation to have, man. But if you don't do it, like you said, it's I mean, you're going to regret it in 30 years when you're trying to retire or when you're trying to buy a house or anytime you have some kind of an emergency.
Or, I've run into tattooers that they're just going to go get an apartment and they make well over six figures, but it's not on paper. And they can't prove to the landlord that they make enough money. And the landlord's like, I know that you make enough, but I can't rent this to you because it's just the proof isn't there. And it's just not, we can't, we're going to go with a better qualified person on paper.
Yeah. So kind of going along with that, what are some of the biggest things you see with shops and shop owners? I mean, I know you mentioned some of them not even having a bank account and they're in their 30s, which is kind of blows my mind. So what are the things you normally see?
Well, I have a pretty interesting glimpse into the lives of a broad spectrum of tattooers because between me and other members on my team, we meet with somewhere between 20 and 30 tattoo artists every week. We do free
Yeah.
consultations, and it's a really valuable conversation. It's an hour-long call. We call it a strategy session, and the goal of the call is to take a look at where you are, where you want to be, and then what's the gap? What's the difference between where you are and where you want to be, and what would make a difference that would support you in accomplishing those goals? So it's a really valuable, eye-opening perspective. And sometimes we have calls with people, we don't end up working with them, but they always tell us that it was one of the most valuable conversations they ever had. And I get messages, I get hundreds of DMs every day with from people that are, just grateful that we're having this conversation at all. So I have a very unique, and I'm not sharing anyone's, I'm keeping it all anonymous, but I do see reoccurring issues. And I would say I'd say probably the biggest one that I see the most often is simply that there's no separation of business and personal finances at all. It's all coming in and out of the same account. And that even goes for shop owners sometimes. Usually if you have, a street shop location and you've got your LLC, you probably do have a business account. I've also run into people that have an LLC, but just never actually got around to opening up the business account. And they were just operating out of their personal account and they just kind of kept doing it because, well, I just never got around to it. So that's the first thing, is having a clear separation between business and personal finances is huge. Yeah.
Definitely, especially come tax season when you're trying to get all your write-offs, and it's the first business I ever had about 8 years ago. I did that for the first 2 years, and I remember going to my tax accountant and giving her like uh, the access to our QuickBooks account, and it was a nightmare, an absolute nightmare, because it all been coming out of the same account. So I had to literally go through and itemize what had come out of the business, what was my personal expenses, um, and just a bank account is essentially free to open, and it solves all those problems.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been there. I operated that way for the first year when I left working at a tattoo shop and I opened up a private studio. Half the year I was operating out of my personal account, and the other half of the year I was operating out of a business. So it was messy, but the step up that you had in that situation that I don't see a lot of people have, which is the next biggest thing, is people are not using bookkeeping software at all. So not only are they operating out of one account, but they're basically downloading their bank statements, throwing them into Procreate on their iPad where they draw their tattoos, and then highlighting everything and basically saying like everything highlighted is a business expense. And it's like, okay, but within those business expenses, what is advertisement? What is general supplies? What is cost of goods sold? There's so many different categories within your business expenses, and the IRS wants to know how your business is spending money and categorize it. And so if you hand that information to your accountant's probably gonna one they're not going to know what is what, and so like I don't this is a secret that people don't know about accountants that I didn't know until just maybe 6-7 months ago. Accountants actually grade their clients. There's like a grading system that accountants are taught to apply to their clients, and you are either an A, B, C, D, or F client. F clients they don't even work with. D clients, they basically push you off to they don't really spend much time. They're not really attentive to, because you're handing them a box full of receipts and saying, I don't know what I'm doing. And your taxes don't get filed properly. You're probably missing out on hundreds of dollars, if not thousands of dollars of tax savings. If you're a D client, your B clients and your A clients are getting the most bang for your buck when you use an accountant. The accountant is going to, because it's easy for the accountant to pay attention, to file your taxes, to categorize everything and put the information in the boxes that it needs to go in. And so by using bookkeeping software, not only does it save you hours and hours, and I use QuickBooks. I'm not sponsored by them or anything. That's the software I use. And it is what it's called. It's QuickBooks. It makes it so quick and so easy to categorize things. You create rules, you create systems, and then within those systems, it does a lot of the work for you. And like I can get a whole year's worth of taxes prepared and handed over to my accountant in about 4 hours, even if I didn't touch it for the whole year, because I've been using the software and I've established these systems that do a lot of the work for me. So if you can't tell already, I'm a huge systems person, because without systems, my life is just utter chaos.
Yeah, yeah, I'm with you on that. I use QuickBooks as well, and like 20 minutes the first day of the month, I go in there, and that's all you need. It's not
Yeah.
hard. It's like, I don't know, $15, $16 a month. It's not expensive. There's no
Yeah.
and you just connect it to your bank account. And it does 90% of the work. So there's no reason anybody should not be using it.
And so then you run into the other issue, right? So we have one issue is not separating business from personal. The next one is not using bookkeeping software. And then the next issue is having a real mix mash of cash and not cash, and under the table and over the table. And, my philosophy, like legally, I mean, I'm not like an actual accountant or anything. I did work as a licensed financial advisor for a period of time. I don't work with a firm currently. Legally, I can't tell you to like not claim income, right? But in the reality is that a lot of people are not claiming all their income, and if that's working for you, go ahead and do it. I have nothing personally against that. Here's some of the problems, and that let's go deep down a rabbit hole that I've spent a lot of time looking at the cash only or the cash mostly model, because I really wanted to question, is this the most financially viable option, right? Putting the laws aside and just saying, does this make the most sense financially for me to not claim my income? So one is, if you're earning cash, you're not putting it in the bank, and you're not claiming it, and then you're using that cash to pay for things, it's really difficult QuickBooks isn't going to see that, so then you have to manually enter things in, and then things are not going to get entered properly. But in general, if you're not claiming the cash, don't write it off. If, you're creating a very muddy system. It's very complicated, and it requires a lot of manual effort. The second thing is it's really difficult to manage physical cash. And so again, if I'm not good at managing money, because I'm busy, right? I'm working, I'm got a family, I'm tattooing, I and then I have to manually like organize money. That money's going to find its way out of my life. That's what I've seen on average. Even if you're hoarding some of it in a safe or a shoebox somewhere, on average, if you were to put all of that money into your system, into your banks, and then have your system manage it, and you had an efficient system, you'd probably be able to save and accumulate more money than if you were just dealing purely with cash. Now, I do occasionally come across some like real hoarders. I come across people that are burying money in the sand. I come across people that are burying gold in deserts. I mean, I've seen it all. I've seen wild shit. So, if that's working for you, I'm not going to tell you to change it, but you might find that it's not. Um, the the thing that I feel that was costing me the most out of operating as a cash only or cash mostly business was that I felt this sort of like need to stay under the radar. So if I started to earn too much money, well, and I'm going to trigger some red flags, and I don't want to do that. So like I'm not going to take credit card payments, which then makes it harder to charge more because everyone's using a credit card, and it's really easy to drop $1,000 on a credit card. It's not so easy to drop $1,000 in cash. So
Mhm.
the easier you make it to receive money, the easier money will flow into your life, and that's ultimately what you want. So when you're dealing with a cash only or cash mostly model, you end up kind of like not wanting to trigger some things, not wanting, you're staying under the radar. It's on your mind, even subconsciously. And I view money as a flow of energy. And so if all of these kind of like restrictions are placed on how much money we can earn, how much money we can show, and you're like, ooh, I don't want the IRS to see that. So I'm going to do this weird dance to try to make it look like I make less money than I do. You're limiting that flow of energy into your life ultimately. And so all of these things cost time, they cost energy, mental energy, physical energy, and they cost money. And that's most of it. I think the biggest cost of a cash only model, and again, I'm not making this argument because I think the government needs my tax money. I don't like paying taxes. In fact, I hate paying taxes. So I've gotten really interested in all of the tools that are available to me to avoid paying taxes as legally as possible, right? As legally as possible. Um, when you go to buy a house, you need to take out a mortgage, right? It's really difficult to save up enough money to just pay for it in cash. So if you had two scenarios where one person is not claiming their income and the other person is claiming their income and paying taxes on it, right? You're roughly paying 27 to 30% between federal and state on the income that you make. So you're right there. It's costing you 30% off the top, right? Whereas the person not paying taxes on their income or all their income is keeping that money, right, in their shoebox. Then you go to the bank and you say, hey, I want to buy a house. And the bank's going to look at your net income. And on average, they're going to loan you between 2 to 3 times the net income that you make. So the money you paid taxes on, say I claimed $100,000, I paid $27,000 in taxes, which sounds like a shit ton of money, but the bank's going to loan me $200,000 to $300,000 to buy that house. So you now have all this buying energy, this energy that you can use to invest in a house that you can then pay a mortgage and build equity in, that you can leverage to advance yourself even further financially. Meanwhile, over here, living the pirate life, they're keeping that 27,000, but they don't have access to that 200 or $300,000 that they could use to invest into a house. So I know I just went on like a long tangent, but I'm passionate about this because I think if people ultimately, I want you as the listener to have this information so that you can make an educated decision as to what serves you best in your life. I'm not telling anyone here to give the government all your money. I just want you to be able to make an educated decision and say, maybe this is working for me now, but I know that in 5 years I want to buy a house. I want to look good on paper. I also want to retire one day, possibly. I don't want to have to work every single day until I die. And so again, you can't invest a duffel bag full of cash. You need to run that money through the system, pay taxes on it, and then you can invest it and earn compound interest, which that alone over 10, 20, 30 years will far outweigh what you paid in taxes along the way. So
Definitely.
that's my
And
argument. That's my case.
yeah,
I'm sticking to it.
no, and it's a great point because I mean, not just a buying a house, buying a car, getting a credit
Yeah.
card,
Yeah.
anything that involves credit, like you have to be able to show that you make money.
I have leveraged debt in some incredible ways to grow my business, to grow my tattoo studio. And if I wasn't paying taxes, the bank's not going to give me that credit card. But I've been able to get business credit cards with 0% APR with tens of thousands of dollars worth of credit because I proved that I'm making the money and the bank can see it. And then I invest that money into my shop. I grow the business, I expand it, I increase my earning potential, and then I pay back the 0% interest card within the 12 months. So I never pay a dime of interest. So I literally borrowed tens of thousands of dollars that I didn't have to pay any interest on, all and increased my income by tens of thousands of dollars, all because I paid some taxes, you know?
Yeah. Yep.
So there's just an endless amount of tools available to us. And I think I think people kind of have a vague idea that this stuff is there. They're just used to, they're just familiar with not doing all this stuff, or this stuff feels new and complicated, or they're like analysis paralysis, like, oh, I could be doing all these things, but it all feels a little bit scary and unfamiliar. So I'm not going to do any of them. I think that is one of the most common problems.
Definitely it can seem very daunting. One of the things that I wanted to talk about real quick with the credit card stuff, like if you have, you can prove your income and you have good credit, you can do some amazing things with credit cards. And like asterisk by it, like don't go get like a $20,000 card and max it out and be like, I'll pay it back sometime. Like you have
Yeah,
to,
don't do that.
yeah,
Yeah.
like we have our business card that it gets literally paid off automatically every Monday.
Yeah.
But then you can also get into, this is kind of off on a tangent, but the points game, like credit card points, and you get free flights, and there's so many cool things that you can do with those resources if you have, again, you can show that you make a good amount of money and you have good credit. There's
Yeah.
a
And
lot
it's
more
literally
opportunity.
free money right there. Like those credit card points, 1.5%, 2%. I have an Amazon card that has 5%. You know, that's free money. So we're also moving our economy, our capitalist system, for better or worse. Again, I don't really view capitalism as like good or bad. I'm a big fan of like the Winston Churchill saying, democracy is the worst form of government except for all the rest. And you could say the same thing about capitalism. Capitalism is the worst form of economics except for all the rest, right? It's not a perfect system, but I view it as a tool to accomplish things. And like any tool, a hammer can be used for good or it can be used for evil. So, but I see a trend when I zoom out and I look at the big picture. And I don't have a degree in economics or anything, but I just feel like I have a familiarity with the flows of energy, and I'm fascinated by finances. So I've read a lot about this stuff. We're moving in the direction where percentages, interest rates, fractional percentages are going to make a bigger difference each and every year, especially with inflation and interest rates and all these things changing rapidly. If you get 1.5% back from a credit card, that could be a huge difference, and it's going to mean more as time goes on.
And there's definitely ways, like if you get into, like you go down the rabbit hole with interest rates and credit cards and stuff like that, there's ways to like compound that. Like if you use like a Visa at Costco and that gets you points back, and then you have a Costco card, you get another like 3% back, and you can actually, at the end of a year, look back and you've saved a good amount of money.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's people, you can go on YouTube and find people that like really gamify the whole credit card thing.
Yeah,
The problem with that is that it then becomes like this full-time job.
yeah, yeah.
It's not like, oh, I'm earning passive income. I've seen people that like they just gamify credit cards and they're transferring and they're getting all these points and they're flying and traveling and hotels and this, but like it literally, there was one guy I saw, he had like a baseball card binder with credit cards. And he was like, these cards earn me these kinds of points, and these cards I only use for renting cars, and these cards I use for this. And he was like basically making a living off of gamifying, but it was a full-time job. It wasn't an easy way to make a living. I'll say that.
Yeah, yeah, that's fair. I would say, yeah, just find one that's going to be the best for your lifestyle. Like, we
Yeah.
like to travel, so we have the Amex Platinum card, which gets us points towards airlines and stuff like that. And that's about as a complex as we get. But it's cool to be able to, like, me and my kid are going to a family reunion in Maine next month, and we're flying first class there and back, 100% on points for free.
Whoa.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's awesome. Um, and those flights probably $1,500, $2,000 a
Yeah, I was gonna
person.
say I've never flown first class. I'm like that. To me, I'm like first class. It seems like a waste of money. I'd rather do. But if you're using points and you're not going to use them on something else, why not?
Yeah, yeah, and so um, it's cool. And then without going too far, again, totally going off on a tangent, man.
Hey, I like it. I've been on a lot of podcasts at this point, and I have a podcast, and I'm all about the tangent. So I just let it free flow where the conversation wants to go.
They're fun. They're definitely fun. But there's when you get those points too, there's airlines that will do like specials. Like last year, we didn't do it, but you could go from like SFO from San Francisco's airport to, I think it was New Zealand, first class for like 80,000 points, which
Mm,
normally is like 300,000. But
gotcha.
there's cool things you can do with those.
If you wanted to like travel more, yeah, super
Yeah,
cool.
yeah. I mean, any money you can save is always good. Again, and then that's you're using points. It's not money coming out of your bank account. It's something that, instead of pulling out 3 grand for this trip, you can put that into, the S&P 500 or something like that.
Well, here's another good point is that, good point, haha, no pun intended, is that credit card points are not taxable. It's not taxable income. You don't pay taxes on it. Now, on the reverse, you can't use credit card points to pay for deductible business expenses because it's not income. If you use the points to pay for the business expense, a lot of people don't know this, you can't write that expense off because you didn't use income to pay for the expense. So I'll use my business credit cards for business purposes, but then when I spend the points, I spend them on things like trips or personal things because I'm not going to write it off.
Got it. I actually didn't know that, so that's a
It's a
good thing
weird
to
one
know.
that an accountant told me a while ago, and I was like, that is good to know. Yeah.
Yeah,
Now, look, if you pay for the business expense using points, you didn't pay taxes on the points, so you don't need to write it off. It's the same benefit. It's dozen of one, half dozen of the other, or whatever they say. But yeah, it's not taxable income. So if you use it to pay for a business expense, it's not a deductible expense.
got it. Okay, yeah,
Yeah,
I guess that makes sense.
yeah.
So yeah, if you're going to a convention or something, actually probably pay for it versus using points.
That's what
To
I,
write it
yeah,
off.
exactly. Yeah. If you're traveling, use the points to pay for personal. Don't use them for business. Yeah.
Got it.
And then you
Okay.
can go, I mean, we can talk there's so many things, nuances to traveling and how to write that off properly. And I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole now, but there's so many nuances. And so I think like at the end of the day, I'm an artist. At my core, I am an artist. I think like an artist. I am creative. I love creativity. I have a 3.5-year-old daughter, and I just watch her as she's this well of creativity and fun and dancing and singing and playfulness. That's at my core how I approach the world. And so I approach money from that perspective. And then I started to look at money like, okay, well, if money is just another creative tool, and my life was the art that I get to create using the medium of money, I'm going to get interested in these kinds of things, in interest rates and inflation and gamifying points on cards. Like these things become more interesting when I look at money through the lens of an artist's perspective. When I look at it through the lens of just a means to an end, it's like, I'm not interested. And so I invite people to start to maybe adopt that perspective because ultimately I don't care about money at all. I don't care about it. What I cared about in the beginning was I just want to do sick tats. That's it. Just leave me alone. I want taxes and retirement. I want it all to leave me the fuck alone so I can just focus on doing sick tats. And then I realized, well, if I understood a little bit more about money, maybe I'd have more time, more energy, and more money to do the sick tats. And so then it became interesting to me. When I tied it to my passion, then it became interesting. But I think that's also what people have a hard time doing is they hold their passion over here, and then they hold money as like over here, or even like spirituality. I think people, have their spiritual practice, right? I meditate, I journal, I pray, but then they view well, money's over here. My spiritual practice is over here. I can't bring my spirituality into my relationship with money, and I certainly can't bring my relationship with money into my spirituality. I personally take a view of spirituality that it should be involved in all areas of my life: creativity, money, relationships, and so yeah, sort of like bringing a holistic relationship, a holistic view to money. I think is one of the bigger. I don't know. I guess is the solution or one of the solutions. Yeah.
That makes sense, and I've never actually really thought about it like that. But that's a good outlook to make it seem more, um, I mean, more important and more like you said. If you just think about money and retirement and stuff like that, like it's pretty fucking boring. But if
Yeah.
you,
Totally. 100%. Yeah.
yeah,
Part
um,
of the hardest part of my job. Well, maybe I don't actually find it that hard, but like I worry that sometimes I'll do like, online webinars or I'm teaching my course and I'm like, I hope these people don't feel bored. But somehow my passion for it comes through. And so I'm like, hey, do I sound like Charlie Brown's teacher right now? It's just like, wah, 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 wah. And they're like, no, 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 this is great. And I think my passion for it comes through, my perspective comes through. And so people are retaining this information in a way that they never have before. And, I don't know if you got a chance to like check out our website or our client testimonials, but people's lives are changed forever. Like their whole outlook on money is different. They're able to save tens of thousands of dollars more than they ever have in their life. And I view that, I'm like, that person's whole rest of their life and every life that they touch, their children's lives, generationally, we have changed the lives of so many people. And that feeling, the reviews, I've gotten written letters from people. They're like thanking me for, and I'm like, that's why I do this. That's why I'm so much more passionate about this than tattooing, because of the impact that changing someone's relationship with money changes every area of their life, not just one area.
yeah. I mean, just the amount of, I would assume, stress that is gone when you have a better grip on your finances is, I mean, I feel like the majority of people, their biggest concern in life revolves around money, not being able to pay something or
Absolutely.
not having enough of it, or
Yeah,
so.
it's the number one stressor. It's also the number one thing that couples fight about.
Oh, I can
Yeah.
see it. Yeah,
More marriages are torn apart due to money stress and poor communication skills, and that's something else that we try to teach people is like, how do we talk about money as a couple? Managing money as a couple is different than managing money as an individual. So let's build a system for that. If the situation requires different systems, let's customize the systems to match the situation.
yeah, definitely not an easy conversation to have because again, it goes back to it's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable to talk with your spouse about money, especially if things aren't going well.
But let's talk about why is it uncomfortable?
That's the weird thing is I think it's just so taboo to talk about it. It shouldn't be, right?
So why is it taboo?
That's a good question. Yeah.
Right? I think you have to look at who does it benefit that talking about money is taboo. And it certainly doesn't benefit the lower class and the middle class to not be talking about money, to not openly say, how much money do you make a year? Oh, I make this much money a year. How much do you spend on rent? Oh, I spend this much on rent, right? If the lower and middle class are not openly having comfortable, easy flowing conversations around money, the top benefits from that. And I think that that's why it's not taught in schools. I think that's why the money taboo exists, is because the people at the top want it to be taboo because they benefit from it.
Got it. Got it. Yeah. Yeah, they do. It is. That is weird because if you think about it, there really isn't a reason that it should be so taboo. It should be just a conversation, but it is.
Right? It totally could be. It really could be just another conversation. You could be talking about money in the same way you talk about what you're going to eat for lunch. And again, that's, I think, one of the things that drew me to financial coaching was it was like the forbidden zone. It was like, I will talk about food, I will talk about sex, I will talk about anything, any area of my life other than money. It's like,
Yeah.
no, let's not talk about that. Shh.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, there's something there. What you what you cannot be with anything, and this goes for any area of your life. If you can't be with it, talk about it wholly and completely and comfortably, it has power over you because you can't be with it, because you can't talk about it. Anything in your life that you can be with wholly and completely, you have freedom around. So take tattooing, right? I can talk about tattooing. I have freedom to talk about machines and needles and skin and colors and everything. And it's just like a free flowing conversation. There's no limitations to it, right? I have freedom around the area of tattooing. I want everyone to be able to talk about money as freely as they talk about whatever their creative passion is, because then they have freedom around money. And if we can't talk about money that openly, then money has power over us.
Definitely. Agreed. Agreed, man. Um, I want to switch gears here just a little bit because I know we're getting close to being
Yeah.
an hour. I don't want to take up a ton of your time.
No, I love this
Um,
conversation. I could talk about this stuff forever. I do.
yeah, I mean, and that's one of the reasons it's great to have somebody like you on here that's so passionate about it. Is not only um, is it great advice that people should be take advantage of, um, but you can feel like the real passion behind it and that you care, and that makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
Especially when you're listening to somebody because
Well, thank you.
but yeah. I had my parents tell me, when you're younger, I think everybody's parents be good with money and like they give you what you should think is sound advice, but it there's no passion behind it. You don't take it seriously. There's no conviction. You're just like, yeah, whatever. Yeah,
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
what I want. And I mean, granted, if I would have listened to them, and when I was younger, I'd probably have a better savings than I do now and more in retirement. But that's just how it is. Uh, Kind of speaking about money in retirement and planning for an emergency or anything like that. I know you said if so 20% of your net profit should be put into a savings account. What if you are in your late 30s? What if you're in your 40s? What if you're in your 50s? I mean, I would assume that, needs to go up significantly so you can retire, within 15, 20 years. What are your thoughts or the golden rules around those?
Yeah. So obviously, when it comes to money, there never is a one size fits all solution. So 20% is a safe generality, and your situation might require you save more or less than that. If the question is, if we were to sit down and look at the numbers and realize, ooh, 20% is not enough, what would be the advice or the things to look into in that scenario? Is that the question?
Yeah, yeah, I'd say
Yeah.
so. Like, yeah,
So one is, I think, just having that realization and actually looking at the numbers. And I actually just on my Instagram shared there's like a spreadsheet that I offer for free, and I did a little 17-minute training on how to use it. You can run your numbers and look and see how on track are you for retirement. So if you're interested, just check out Ryan Roi Tattoo on Instagram. It's one of the top posts, and if you just comment there, I'll send it to you.
love that.
Or
Nice.
just DM me. I'm happy to send it to you. So just understanding how far off the goal, because you ever seen the movie The Patriot with Mel Gibson?
Long time ago, but yes.
Yeah, it's a decent movie, but there's a scene in the movie where he's teaching his son how to shoot.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, look, I don't want you to aim for the head. I want you to aim for the ear, because if you aim for the head and you miss, you just might miss altogether. But if you aim for the ear and you miss, you're still probably going to hit your target, right? Or at least get closer to the goal of ending this person's life.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm using that as a metaphor for knowing how far off your goals are, because if you should be saving 30%, or if 30% would make a massive difference for you, but you didn't know that, you're not likely to take that steps necessary in order to hit that 30% savings goal. And it's possible. We've had clients save 30+% of their income, not necessarily earning extraordinary revenue, net incomes, but it's possible depending on how you establish your systems in your life. But that perspective alone, I'd say, is probably the number one thing to get you on track. Then you want to look at, okay, what are the tools available to me to play catch up, to climb 4 or 5 rungs on the ladder instead of just one rung on the ladder. So real estate is generally something I would advise someone look into, even if it's a small real estate investment that they then, turn into a bigger one later down the line. Those tools are more important today than they ever were to help people play catch up. And the reality is, I don't know what the statistics are exactly on this, but I don't want to throw out a number exactly, but I'm going to go ahead and just say that a large portion of people in their 30s and 40s right now, if we just look at those two age ranges, a large portion, a scary portion of those people are not anywhere close to where they should be in order to be prepared for retirement. So if you think that might be the case, it probably is. And so something like real estate investing, right? You might think, oh God, it's daunting, right? There's a lot of good podcasts out there that can educate you on that. Deeper Pockets, I believe, is a really good one. They actually have
Yeah.
meetup groups that people will support each other. So get interested now, because because it takes time, right? You need to get some seeds planted in your mind around it before those seeds will grow and bear fruit. So start to get interested in ways that you can increase revenue. Passive income is obviously something you're going to want to think about if you're not quite where you should be on your road to retirement. Again, there's so many, wanting passive income is something I hear a lot from people that we meet with. They're like, yeah, I'm really interested. I want to earn passive income. The thing with passive income is that there's no such thing as passive income.
100%
There is
agreed.
less active income, but it's still going to require time, energy, and money to produce that less active income. And often that less active income requires a huge amount of active energy up front that will then later 2, 3, 4 years down the line turn into passive income. So it's not just something you figure out. Like, I've talked to people that are doing like the Amazon arbitrage, drop shipping, whatever, or Airbnb arbitrage. Again, to even get to that point, you probably have to have 10, 20, 30 grand saved so that you can start that endeavor. But start now before there's going to be opportunities that are going to come your way in the next 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years. And if you put yourself in a position now where you're starting to save, you have a better financial foundation, you're going to see those opportunities and you're going to be able to take advantage of them. But if you don't prepare now, you're not even going to see the opportunity. It's not even going to occur to you that there's this opportunity to make more money in less time, because you didn't do the steps necessary now to prepare yourself so that you're in the position where you have the mental acuity and the perspective where you're like, oh, wow, so-and-so is about to buy this property, but they need help. They want to partner. Maybe I could partner with this person, right? You're only going to see that available to you if 5 years ago you set your systems up so that you're saving more money. But if you didn't do that, you might hear some and it's just going to pass by. It's not even going to show up on your radar,
Yeah.
right? So, excuse me, I get a dry throat because I talk so much. And then the last thing I just want to throw out there, if you're really late to the game, is you could look into something like annuities, which a lot of people don't really know a lot about. It's something I studied a bit when I was getting my financial advisor's license. To be honest, I don't know a ton about them, but essentially it's longevity insurance, meaning you'll pay into the annuity for 5, 10 years, 15 years, whatever. And the amount that you pay per month and the length of time that you pay into the annuity increases the monthly payment that it will pay to you. And so essentially after 5, 10, 15 years, whenever you're done paying into the annuity, you annuitize it. Annuity meaning annually, like there's an annual payout, and I mean it can pay you monthly, it can pay you quarterly, it can pay you however you set it up. But it's something that is essentially going to pay you a set amount every month until you die. So it's not, it will continue to pay you. Now, obviously, if you pay $5 a month for 2 years into an annuity, maybe you'll get 30 cents a month until you die. I don't know, So obviously, the sooner you start something like that, that would be something I would speak to a financial advisor who specializes in annuities, who really knows their thing about that. Maybe they specialize with people that are coming to the game later for retirement. So if you're really in a hard position and you know you're coming late to the game, that's the last thing I would recommend you look into.
Got it. Cool. One more quick question for you. I know we're just about at an hour, and I'll let you go, man. What do you think about people buying their shops? I mean, as a commercial property, as an investment, versus just going and renting a place,
Um,
if they can.
if they can, I mean, if you can, I would say more often than not, it's probably a good decision. Because then you're not, the shop is making you money, right? But it's also costing you money. So if the money that it costs you to operate the shop is going to build equity in the asset, which is the building, versus just going into the pocket of your landlord, I mean, that's a pretty sweet deal. Obviously, there's might be scenarios where that's not the case, but if your shop's doing well, if you've been there for a little bit and you get the opportunity to buy it and you can do it, more often than not, it's probably going to be a good opportunity. Yeah.
And my thought would be, I'm not sure what the average, I guess, length of a shop in a single location is, or how long the average is before one goes out of business. But even if you have that shop 6, 7, 8 years, and then you move or you go out of business or whatever, I mean, we've all seen how crazy the prices have been on any kind of housing or commercial over the last 6, 7, especially the last like 2, 3 years. But I mean, in the last 7, 8 years, look how much the difference in housing has gone up, the difference in commercial property. If you have that shop 6, 7, 8 years, you're going to make a pretty penny on it instead of, like
Or
you
just
said.
rent the space out. You own the
Yeah,
commercial space, right? If you don't want to operate your shop out of that location anymore, you've already built it out. Maybe you rent it out to some other tattoo artist, right?
yeah,
Or you just gut it and rent it out to someone else. So yeah, it puts you in a position where you have more options. And ultimately, any financial decision you make, first of all, there are no good financial decisions made from a place of fear. So if you're experiencing fear or scarcity or guilt or shame or anything like that, you're going to want to like pause, go for a little walk around the block before you make a financial decision. And with every financial decision, think about, is this putting me in a position where I have more options or less options in the future? And so sometimes there might seem like a good opportunity, like your landlord might offer you to do a 2 or a 3 year lease or a 10-year lease. And you're like, that sounds good, but are there going to be scenarios in the future where I don't want to be in a lease? And maybe it's not the smartest option. It might be, but just consider the freedom and the flexibility that you're going to have in the future. Is this financial decision giving me more flexibility or less flexibility? Because that flexibility is valuable in itself.
100%. 100% agreed, man. Well, Ryan, I really appreciate you coming on here. That was a great conversation. Really, again, money is taboo, and so being able to have somebody come on here and give sound financial advice for an industry that sometimes isn't the best with money, and I'm not either. So don't get me wrong.
Yeah, no, none of us are. None of us
Yeah,
are. And as you can hear, while money might be taboo in certain circles, it's certainly not taboo around me. I talk about it as easily as I talk about tattooing. It's a fun game to talk about. And I think if you take anything from this conversation, just take that. Just take like, maybe I could go talk to my partner or talk to my friend or talk to my mentor about money. And see now, be careful who you take advice from, Because if they're not living the life that you want to live, and I've had people tell me the advice their tattoo mentor gave them around money, I'm like, ooh, that's maybe not the
Don't
best
do that.
advice. But if you see someone and they're doing something right, I bet you if you said, hey, could I buy you coffee and ask you some questions about business, they might be open to it, and they'd probably be happy to share what they've learned. So go do that. Go get a mentor or come talk to me. I'd be happy to, see if we can help you out.
Definitely. And Ryan, where can people find you?
The best place? Well, there's a few places now. We do have a podcast, The Artful Dollar, which is the name of my company. It's the name of my program. It's also the name of my podcast. You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, Amazon. The podcast is there, and we have some really great conversations around money. I interview tattooers, skateboarders, Buddhist monks. I also share just conversations that I'm thinking about money that I think are useful. And then also on Instagram, I'm very, very active. I share a lot of tangible, actionable tools. I share a lot of free resources on Instagram, and I'm very active on there. So you can always have a conversation with me. I'm there 7 days a week talking to people. So that would be the best way to get in touch is through Instagram.
Perfect. Again, Ryan, I really appreciate it, brother.
Yeah, my
Yeah,
pleasure.
love to have this conversation again sometime in the future because there's
Yeah,
a
maybe we can
lot
have
that
a
can be
marketing
unpacked.
conversation in the future.
Definitely, man. Definitely would
Yeah,
be
I'd
more
be
than
open to
happy
that.
to.
Super
Yeah.
cool.
All right,
Excellent.
brother.
Thank you.
Have a great one.